They said the smell arrived first, a sour-sweet weight that rolled ahead of the truck like weather. Stall-keepers paused mid-bargain, scooter horns softened, and school kids pinched their noses in choreographed disgust. Then the convoy rounded the corner by the Tainan train station, and the thing on the flatbed came fully into view. A sperm whale, road-dirty and immense, webbing straps digging dark furrows across a body already beginning to bloat. It had washed ashore days earlier along Taiwan's southern coast. 17 meters of ocean muscle turned, by heat and time, into a problem. The city had a plan: carry the carcass through town to a university lab, open it like a black box, and read its last hours in tissue and parasites. Plans always speak in futures. Pressure speaks in the present. The whale lay like a barge, jaw slack, skin sloughing in places where the sea had rubbed it raw. Morning sun pushed on the straps and on everything trapped under them. Deep in the tissues, bacteria worked without pause, digesting what could no longer defend itself and exhaling methane, hydrogen sulfide, and a bouquet of other gases that acquire their own vocabulary once released. The body swelled, the rig inched past noodle shops, a clinic, a row of parked cycles, and tin-roofed houses with bright awnings. People took photographs because that is what people do when the extraordinary intrudes on an ordinary street. It felt like myth borrowing a city and trying it on for size. Moving a whale inland only looked simple. The fishing village where it washed up had no equipment for anything except winching the carcass off the beach. The nearest lab with the right freezers and knives sat inland, so the route was measured in intersections, estimated load limits, and corners wide enough to spare someone's awning. No one who drew the map drew a cross-section of gas building inside a rib cage. If you've ever left a sealed container on a sunny windowsill, you know the outline. Material plus microbes plus heat plus time equals pressure. A whale is more forgiving than a jar, until it isn't. Skin stretches, connective tissue surrenders, cavities between organs balloon, even ribs bow a little, and then a little more. The straps groaned and held. A tide of onlookers followed, pointing at the long jaw and the little drape of lip that, from a distance, looked almost like a smile. Inside the skull, cartilage softened. Inside the abdomen, bacteria celebrated their plenty. The procession stopped at a light. The driver, to his credit, let the truck breathe. Somewhere within that enormous torso, a membrane reached its limit and parted like cheap tape. The tear ran faster than anyone on the pavement could have sprinted, unzipping along the belly, tensile strength and fermentation joining hands. The sound was a low, flat pop, magnified by a cathedral of bone. The whale exhaled everything it had been holding. People there say time split cleanly into before and after. One moment, spectacle. Next, a geyser of gas, liquid, and tissue blasting sideways with democratic accuracy. The smell arrived as a wall and then as a residency. A curtain of viscera, blood dark, tan, pink, and the gray of the sea on a bad day, fell across scooters and storefronts and a stack of cardboard boxes that had never hoped to be archaeological evidence. Windows filmed over in emulsified fat. A passerby who had come only to see something unusual suddenly wore the ocean's interior on his shirt. Laughter tried to form and retreated before the authority of biology. Silence had to reset. Then the small noises of a city returning to agency, a shout for water, a shopkeeper dragging a hose, a police whistle that meant nothing except that a person still knew how to use breath. The driver climbed down, stared into the opened belly he had been asked to shepherd, and swore the kind of oath that ends as a question. The signal flipped from red to green and stayed there. Circuitry does not learn from experience unless someone writes that into the code. Cleanup crews arrived and did the work, shoveling, squeegeeing, bagging, blocking. Hose water pushed a film of whale toward drains meant for rain. Bleach joined the air, TV vans appeared. Reporters rehearsed the obvious sentence and tried to keep their dignity. The biologists, when they finally got their specimen, were gentler than the road. Afterward, they spoke in the careful tones of professionals who know how quickly throwaway sentences turn to legend. Decomposition, they said, produces gas faster than most imagine. A whale grants microbes a mansion, quickly turning into a pressurized vessel whose skin once kept pressure in and now keeps it wrong. Venting before transport is not decorum. It is physics. So is keeping the route short and the ride cool. So is leaving myth on the beach when the beach is the only laboratory that will not argue. Road to Ruins keeps a ledger of systems at their edges. Here, those systems were old. Biology and bureaucracy, heat and hope, a body built for depth, asked to cross town. The hazard announced itself with swelling and smell. People leaned in anyway. The Tainan eruption wrote its own chapter, not dynamite, but fermentation multiplied by volume, cinched by straps and sunlight. The street became a textbook, the photographs a curriculum no one asked for. What lingered wasn't only the stench, that surrendered eventually to hoses and time, but the way ordinary life accepted the bizarre and then resumed. Shopkeepers wiped signs clean and made change at the next hour. A boy on a bicycle, who had watched an anatomy lesson no school would schedule, later told a friend the day smelled like burned sugar and the ocean when it's angry. City workers swapped lunch stories about whose boots would ever be the same. Someone hosed off a stray dog with the kindness of a person who doesn't have words for gratitude but knows an action that will do. In the lab, the necropsy had its own quiet drama: stomach stones, squid beaks, parasites. Under fluorescent truth, spectacle collapsed back into what it had been first: an animal. It is tempting to tell the tale as farce: a city splattered, a convoy defeated by biology. The better version treats it as a case study in neglected pressure. We wrap big problems in straps, permits, and paperwork, and congratulate ourselves on logistics. Pressure does not read permits. It obeys older rules written by microbial generations and the tensile limits of skin. The tidy lessons fit on posters: vent early, cool always, root briefly, warn generously, keep people back. The deeper lesson: when life stops moving itself, everything that once cooperated negotiates its exit. If we invite that negotiation into our streets, we should be ready to mop and to change the protocol that sent a pressurized vessel through a market at noon. In the years since, the pictures have done their rounds: television, blogs, then the endless second life of a searchable web. New viewers make the same face old viewers did: half awe, half disgust, with the guilty thrill of seeing a private process go public. A few imagine the smell and push their screens away. A fewer, write to one another about transport temperatures, containment tarps, and the cost of failing to vent. Somewhere, a young scientist decides to specialize in decomposition because a city learned, loudly, what happens inside large bodies after time has its say. Call it spectacle if you must. Better to call it instruction with poor manners. Pressure asked for room. The straps denied it. The street paid. The rest was cleanup, reporting, and the stoic humor people use when something has already happened and cannot be undone. Thank you for listening to Road to Ruins. Subscribe for more true stories where systems fail and people pay the price.